Well, here we've got the memory mode. It's Cherry Audio's latest release, and if you've seen any of my other Cherry Audio videos, you'll know I think these are outstanding value for money. So the memory mode, I imagine that's meant to be a memory moog, as it looks like a memory moog. Got a few extra bits, so we've got the phaser, the ensemble, echo and reverb and stuff along the bottom. I do not have a memory moog to compare it against though, like I did with the others. I'll just show you a few of the functions we've got here. So we've got this lovely interface that you can resize however you like. We can focus in on various parts and just scroll around, reset that. We've got this keyboard, which is really handy. Just play it with your laptop keyboard. MIDI panic, MIDI learn. So what have I learnt on this so far? There you go, I've learnt the cutoff. That's on this single slide I've got on this really, on what I think is probably the world's oldest controller keyboard. But you can learn all sorts of things. You can go through all the parameters. Got the zoom functions, settings. We can have it white, but it's a little bit dazzling, I think. General settings, all this sort of gumph. We've got an undo and a redo function, and then we've got the patch librarian here, and there's lots and lots of patches it comes with. So go back to my user presets and just I've made a few for this demonstration. So that's the overall user interface. Let's start taking a look at the actual synth, shall we? We can have it in poly or mono with various ways of triggering the oscillators. In mono mode, we've got different voice priorities and unison mode as well. And I'm not going to go into exactly what all the different poly modes and stuff do. You can read all about that here on their website. It's got a really, really good comprehensive manual on here. Look at the oscillator section. Voice architecture, so everything you want to know about it's there. But in this video I'm just going to demonstrate the sounds and what you can do with it. So start off I think with the oscillators, and these oscillators are unlike the actual Minimoog because you can stack them. You can have a sawtooth with a triangle and a square. So you can get quite complex waveforms. You can see them down there on the left. And what I really like about this is that when we go through the mixer, we do actually add some distortion. I know there's always meant to be a bit of distortion when you go from the mixer into the VCF on a Moog, but it's not always as obvious as it is on this. We'll just play a triangle. That looks like a triangle on the bottom left, and then when I turn the mixer over 50%, we've moved to a sine, which is what you'd expect with a lot of distortion. We've squished the signal, and we've even lost some harmonics if we look down here. On the bottom right. Let's do that with a sawtooth. And with the square. And you can see it squishing that square again. When we're below 50%, we've got angles on the sort of plateaus. It sort of squishes it down to almost level. If we put them all in and we look down at the bottom right at the harmonic content, we can see those spikes are moving relative to one another, so it's changing the harmonic content because it's distorting. So as soon as you start playing with this, look at that, you know this isn't just any old bog standard virtual instrument with a pretty interface. It is actually a decent synth straight away. So let's go back to a couple of sawtooths. So it just sounds nice, doesn't it? Let's try pulse. Go to 0. It's a very thin. And we'll try modulating that with the LFO. I'll come over to the LFO section in a minute, but while we're looking at the oscillator, let's modulate pulse width of 1 with the LFO on a triangle. It's doing exactly what you think. Let's try it a bit more, see if it goes through 0. Yes, it does. Doesn't sound that crisp, that though, does it? The rate seems to be changing slightly. Maybe their old MEMORYMOG does this. Maybe it's a quirk of them. Okay, let's add a third oscillator, shall we? Let's put them all on the sawtooth. So oscillator 3 is identical to oscillators 1 and 2, except we have a low mode, so it can be an LFO, and we can detach the keyboard control as well. Oscillator 2 is also syncable to 1, so let's just try that. That sounds nice as well, doesn't it? Let's try and modulate that over on the left as well. Let's modulate oscillator 2 with the filter contour. Yeah, that's lovely. That works really well, doesn't it? Okay, oscillators, I think. Should we move over to the filter? And again, I've not got a MEMORYMOG in front of me, but I have tried this against my Minimoog actually. Got exactly the same sort of character. We start with the cutoff on full. It's got that typical Moog sort of sound. Put the resonance up. You're losing your bass, just like every other ladder filter. The MEMORYMODE's not quite as resonant. It doesn't have all those little bits of dirt and that sort of little grit as it grinds from harmonic to harmonic like it does on the Minimoog. And that might be a MEMORYMOG thing where they thought they didn't need it to be quite as harsh, quite as resonant because it's a polysynth. Who knows? I don't have one, as I say. That sounds like a Moog filter. We've also got a 12 dB slope as well. And as you expect, the 12 dB is letting more high through. That's all lovely, that is. That works really well. And I don't know if the MEMORYMOOG's got anything special in the filter that I should be looking out for, but as far as I'm concerned, that sounds like a Moog filter. On the envelopes, we've got a couple of little extra bits here. Let's put this return to 0 on. So every time you press a key, it goes back to the start of the attack phase. So let's put this, let's take that off for now and just show you what it's doing. So if I put return to 0 on, it'll always return to 0 when I press a key. Let's take that off. The unconditional contour, so it always plays to the end of the attack phase. So if I just play something, I've just hit the key and released it, so just an instant. I don't know if you can see a MIDI trigger anywhere. So it's always playing up to the attack phase, and you get some nice effects doing that. Almost sounds like it's backwards, doesn't it? Keyboard follow, so you get faster envelopes up the keyboard, and release on and off. And we've got velocity on both of them as well. I'd like to show you that, but this, as I say, this is a really old controller keyboard and doesn't even have velocity, so I can't. The mixer with a nice overdrive, the filter and the envelopes we've done. Let's take a look at the modulation then. The modulation's interesting because it's a little bit like a Prophet 5 really, in that we've got a single LFO with a few wave shapes. Plus you've got various destinations. We've got more than we've got on the Prophet 5 here, but you've only got a single amount knob. So you can't have different amounts of modulation on each of the destinations. Fair amount of modulation there though, isn't there? What is that? I wonder. Let's put it onto square again. Almost 3 octaves. Yeah, almost 3 octaves, so a fair amount of modulation there. I think on my Prophet 6 it's just about 1 octave. But compared to new instruments, that is limited, but the original was, and that's part of the fun of these old things, isn't it? Or these old emulations, or these emulations of old things, I should say. The fun of it is to actually play around with what people were playing around with in the early 80s. And then we come to the voice modulation, and this is where we've got oscillator 3 as a modulation source. So this is basically the FM section. And I've had a little play with this, and what I've found is that it doesn't sound like my Minimoog, but it doesn't really matter, only for a few tones. And actually, it's one of the things that most soft synths don't do very well. So it's no surprise that for $39, it's not perfect. But I'll just show you, let's go through it. So if I modulate oscillator 1 with oscillator 3, put 3 on a square, turn the level off so we're not listening to it. Let's switch oscillator 1 on as a destination. The Minimoog just doesn't do that sort of throbbing, that sort of pulsating. Just doesn't exist. So You can hear all those sounds in there, all those harmonics coming in and out, but it's in between all that gristle, and you just don't get the gristle on the analog synth. And that means you can't do these sort of sounds and sound like the originals. But how often do you use these sort of sounds? And that's sort of my point on this. Trying to tune this to something musical now. So once you get to the tone you're looking for, or a tone you like, it's not bad. So that's not bad if we use it on the filter. And I did wonder how often people use FM in tone, so I went through a lot of the presets on this, and it's hardly used at all, to be honest, and it isn't on a lot of synths, but it's used for some really nice little effects. So here we've got it, just adding a little bit of harmonics. Gives like a vocal effect almost. And this is an audio range, so if we put that in low, nice little effect, and then something similar, adding some more harmonics. So just lovely little subtle effects. And of course you can use it in low frequency mode, which does all sorts of nice things as well. So we can do, I don't know, let's do it. Low frequency mode, we're going to use oscillator 3 as an LFO. We'll modulate the filter maybe. And by combining these waves, we're getting modulation that you can't get on the LFO. So that's quite nice, but when you're using oscillator 3 as the modulation source, each note or each voice has got a different LFO, so they're all out of phase, so you get really nice little effects like this. And every time you play something, you get slightly different variation on it. And if you do the same thing just with the LFO, a completely different effect. Still a nice effect, but completely different one. So what else haven't I showed you? Maybe show you some Unison. Let's go to mono, Go to Unison, last note priority. Actually, let's just get a simple sawtooth up, show it a bit simpler. Mono, Unison mode. Pick the number of voices, do 6. Let's try 8. Or should we go for 16? Then we've got a chord mode, so let's play a chord. Take it off Unison mode, put it back in poly mode. There we go. Instant rave. Let's put another oscillator on there. Cool, add a bit of reverb. Not bad, is it? Dampen off, let's see what the decay is like on full. Let's just go for everything up. So dampen off, 50% wet, decay on full, on a plate. Nice, and the echo. Doesn't go into oscillation, does it? Still nice though, there's some effects you can get out of that. And ensemble. Let's turn that down a bit. All very good, highly usable and nice sounding effects. So all in all, I mean, verdict on this is it's a lovely little synth for $39. You can't go wrong. If you want to have the sort of experience of programming a MEMORYMOG, I reckon, you know, pick this up and have a little play with it. It is fun, and there's loads of stuff you can do with it. There's tons and tons, as I say, of presets in here, or collections. Fair amount of sounds for you to get started with, including the original factory ones, which are always, always awful. So yeah, maybe not play with them. Anyway, I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere, and if it was, please think about subscribing and maybe ring the bell and maybe join me over on my Patreon page. Every little thing helps to support the channel. So I will see you next time.